Hey guys, welcome back to Infertile AF, the podcast. This is episode 100 called Vince. You guys, I am so excited to tell you that my very first children's book is out now. It's available for pre-order. It's called Work of Art. It is about IVF. The subtitle is An IVF Kid Learns About Assisted Reproductive Technology. It is the story of me telling my son, Sonny, the very cool way that he was born through IVF and how he is a work of art. It is a love letter to both of my kids, my daughter Ever and my son Sonny. It's about secondary infertility. We talk about miscarriage a little bit and loss and just the love that parents have for their kids. So I'm so proud of it. It's available now. The first 150 copies I am actually numbering and personalizing and shipping for free in the US. So if you want to get one, please go to infertileafgroup.com/books. Again, that's infertileafgroup.com/books, or you can go to my Instagram, which is infertileaf stories. There's a link in my bio, but you can pre-order it. Like I said, I'm so thrilled with my illustrator, who's this incredible guy named Federico Bonificini. It's such a cute book, and I really just want to normalize the conversation around ART and IVF and all the things. And I'll give you guys a little hint. This is the first in a series. So I have 3 other books in the back of my mind right now, and I'll be writing more as well. I want to cover same-sex family building, donor conception, all the things, every single topic, surrogacy, adoption, and things like that. So please check out Work of Art. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Thank you so much for everybody who's purchased one so far. I'm just overwhelmed at how much you guys have embraced this, and this has really been a dream come true. So it's called Work of Art. I hope you guys love reading it as much as I enjoyed writing it. Thank you. I love you all. This episode is sponsored by AG1. I first gave AG1 a try because I became tired of taking so many supplements every day. I felt like my cupboard was literally overflowing with them, and I wanted a single solution that would support my entire body by filling in nutrient gaps daily. About a month ago, I started adding AG1 to my pre-workout smoothie, and since drinking it daily, I have absolutely felt a difference in my physical health and energy. Not only does AG1 deliver my daily dose of vitamins, minerals, pre- and probiotics, and more, it's also a powerful, healthy habit that's powerfully simple. It's just 1 scoop mixed in water or smoothie once a day, every day. The very cool part is that just 1 daily scoop of AG1 covers my nutrient gaps and supports my mental and physical health in just 60 seconds. I know if I drink it daily, I'm going to bring my A game to my workouts and feel that boost in energy. And it's not just an energy boost, it's a sustained energy that gets me through the day, whether I'm doing a spinning class, running around, recording podcasts, or walking my dog. I know that with AG1, I'm giving my body high quality nutrition. Every batch of AG1 goes through a rigorous testing process, so you know that it's safe. And AG1 ingredients are sourced for absorption, potency, and nutrient density. AG1 is the supplement I trust to provide the support my body needs daily, and that's why I'm excited to welcome them as a new partner on my show. So guys, here's your chance to start every day this season with a gift to yourself. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase exclusively at drinkag1.com/infertileaf. Again, that's drinkag1.com/infertileaf. I'm so excited for you guys to check it out. Thanks, AG1. This episode is supported by Receptiva DX. Getting pregnant isn't always easy, as so many of you listening know. Many couples struggle with infertility, and unexplained infertility can be particularly frustrating. Receptiva DX is the only test that can identify endometriosis, progesterone resistance, and endometritis in a single sample, all causes for unexplained infertility and the success rates of IVF treatments. Receptiva DX includes BCL6, a marker that identifies uterine inflammation, most often associated with asymptomatic, aka silent, endometriosis. BCL6 is found in more than 50% of women with unexplained infertility and over 65% of women with 2 or more IVF failures. If positive for the Receptiva DX test, treatment options can improve the chances for a successful live birth 5-fold. Learn more at receptivadx.com or download their app, which is also called Receptiva DX. And for $75 off, you can go to their website, order the test, and use code INFERTILEAF23. Again, it's receptivadx.com. Use code INFERTILEAF23. Thanks, Receptiva DX. All right, guys. Well, here we are, 100 episodes. Wow. It has been such an incredible, fun, entertaining, sad, heartfelt, emotional ride. Thank you to all of you for listening. Thank you to everybody who has been on my show. I never imagined that I would get 100 episodes into this, but I still feel like we've only kind of scratched the surface. So I just wanted to say I really do appreciate all the support. And I'm so glad that we have connected with so many people. And as I always say, this is, something I wish I had when I was going through it. So the messages that I get and the DMs and everything from you guys saying that has helped you just makes it all worth the while. So today's guest is somebody that I know probably best in the world. It's my husband, Vince Prato. I wanted to have a very special guest for my 100th episode, and I had always wanted to interview Vince, and then we never did it because I think we were both kind of nervous. But about a month ago, I was like, let's just do it. And you can be the fucking 100th episode, and it will be awesome. So we did it. Full disclosure, we were having some drinks while we recorded this episode because we felt like we had to. It would make it more fun and easier because, like I said, we were both nervous. So you will definitely hear some gooshing of cans opening while we're talking, which is kind of funny. But anyway, I'm so glad that we did it because it was actually really therapeutic and it wasn't as painful as I thought it might be. And I didn't even cry once. So I wanted Vinny to be able to tell his side of the story that you guys have heard my version of in many different iterations over the last year and a half or almost 2 years now. So without further ado, this is Vince's infertility story. Hi, Vinny.
Hi, Allie.
Why are we doing this?
Because it's important that we get our story out there. It's important that after 100 of these episodes, we get to talk about what got us to this place.
I feel nervous. I don't normally get nervous at all when I interview anybody. Maybe Dave Grohl.
Well,
I was nervous about, but I don't know. I feel a little nervous.
I'm not necessarily studio ready, so we're just going to see how this goes.
Let's start at the beginning and talk about how we met and how we got together.
Okay,
we won't dwell on that too much, but.
Do we start back at the ski trip, or do we actually talk about when we got together?
I think when we got together.
Okay, all right. Well, then let's. How did that go? when did that happen? It was a night in the junior year of our high school, and been spending a lot of time at your locker, and you were teaching step aerobics at Women's Workout World.
That's right. I was an aerobics instructor. This is the early 90s.
And
I taught
in fact,
step aerobics. Your mom
That's right. My mom and her friends were
one of my students.
They were your audience.
Shout out to Rose and Candy.
And there was a party that was happening. And I said, maybe I'll come pick you up from Women's Workout World and we could go to that party. You called in reinforcements from Carrie Spitzer.
Yes, hi Carrie.
And you said, well, I don't know if he's actually going to show up, which Lisa Robertson, shout out to you, we were at the party together and you said, you better go get her. And I did. And
right,
I showed up.
So wait, backing up a little bit. We were in high school.
We were in high school.
Juniors in high school. So this is 1991, I believe. And yes, I was teaching aerobics. You had taken a little bit of a shine to me. Is that
that would be accurate? Yeah. You were a little.
Okay.
I think you were a little out of my league at that point. Allie probably hasn't spent any time talking about how she was the captain of the cheerleading team and sort of top of the food chain as far. It was a big high school too, so that was that actually meant something. I was special teams at best on the football team and. More of a skater kid at the core. So to be able to pick Allie up from Women's Workout World was a bit of a coup.
All right, so you had made a plan with our friend Carrie.
Yeah.
That you were going to pick me up from Women's Workout World when I got off my shift at 9 p.m. on a Friday night.
That's right. 9 p.m.
There was a party.
Yeah.
And you were going to take me to that party from Women's Workout World. However, I wasn't sure if you were actually going to show up or not.
Correct.
So I told Carrie, why don't you come as well? Because I'm not really sure if Vince is serious. And lo and behold, when I came out of my shift at 9:01, you were there in the parking lot, and Carrie was there as well. And I looked at Carrie. It was kind of like in the 16 Candles when she sees Jake Ryan out in front, looks at her dad, I saw your car.
that's kind
and
of.
And I looked at Carrie and I was like, oh my God, he's here. And she's like, go.
It was
go,
a Toyota Cressida, not a Porsche, but sure.
Right. It was a Porsche in my eyes. So we went to this party together. But you know what? I remember what I was wearing. Okay, so this dates us so much, but I was wearing a pink Forenza sweater, and it was fuzzy, but there was a V down the back, and then I had on Guess jeans, but they zipped up at the ankle but in the back, and they were our friend Jenny Thoming's mom's jeans that I had stolen from her or borrowed from her one day. So we went to this party. Anyway, long story short, we ended up making out.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
There was a fight.
Out in the yard.
Fight in the yard.
And then the rest is history. All right, the end.
No.
Thank you for being on my podcast.
Not the end. I tried to. I didn't want it to. I didn't want the night to end like every other high school party. The thing got broken up, and everybody had to scatter like roaches. So I said, well, we can just go back to my house, which I had actually never brought a girl back to my house.
Hey.
So we were just going to watch some TV in the living room, and my mother was like, wait, what? There's a girl down there?
Was it that night that she
was
kept coming down?
Same night.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my God, I'm trying to make miracles happen here. And you keep coming down and asking if Allie's still here, which
we were making out on the couch, and your mom kept coming down, and we
Correct.
were joking that she was cock blocking. Not that anything crazy was happening, but
she basically shooed us out, and we got back in the car that we showed up in, and I took you back to your place, and I think we probably made out in the car a little bit more.
Oh my God, high school, guys, high school. We're 16. Oh my God, Vince, you had braces on your teeth.
I did have braces.
You had braces on your teeth, and you were like a skater kid. And I feel like you were pretty skinny.
Oh yeah. Well,
you hadn't come into your own yet.
Comparatively, I was very skinny.
All right, so we started dating. That was the first night, and then I remember thinking, I really like this guy. You were just cool and normal, and I didn't have to try so hard. It was we were friends basically first, more than anything.
That's
we were friends, and then all of a sudden we were hot and heavy and dating, and we ended up dating for the rest of our high school careers. So for about a year and a half, we dated, and then it was time to go to college. We went to 2 different colleges.
Yeah, that was a really mature decision that we made, which was we knew very well that going to 2 different colleges wasn't gonna work. Right, and it was going to breed lies, and it was going to breed. It's not who we wanted to be, so we agreed to see other people.
Yeah, so we said, okay, you're going to Southern Illinois. I'm going to University of Illinois in Champaign. We're about 3 hours apart driving, and we decided we're kind of still going to be boyfriend girlfriend, but it's stupid to think at 18 that we're never going to see anybody else.
Correct.
So we made the joint decision that we were going to date other people, have fun in college. I
I remember we had a rule, like, don't ask, don't tell, like, don't tell me who you're boning. I don't want to know. And our other rule was, don't surprise me. Do not show up at my
Don't just,
dorm.
we're close enough that you could just drop in.
I don't want to roll up and you have some skank
no
in your bed.
No dropping in.
Right. So those were our rules, and it actually worked out. I mean, there's obviously a lot of, ups and downs and heartache that we don't need to get into, but when college ended, I remember you were like, did you find anybody that you like better than me? And I was like, no. And I tried so hard.
Yeah.
And same with you. So we ended up, moving to Chicago. We did break up for a minute, but then we got back together.
Yeah, well, we broke up for a minute, but as it turns out, all of our friends are mutual, so we saw each other at every single party, every Friday and Saturday night, and then that didn't seem to make sense anymore because we just ended up spending time with each other.
Yeah. So then we were like a for real couple, and now we're in our 20s, and we have our first jobs, and I was working at Playboy. You were teaching.
No, well, not anymore. Not at that point. I had moved on from teaching. I was working at that ad agency.
Oh, right. Okay.
And maybe I'm flashing forward a year or two, but
That's fine.
things happen. Things move pretty quick.
Yeah, they don't need to hear year by year.
I know that.
Okay, so cut to we got married in 2002. I cannot remember if it's 2002 or 2003.
It was 2002.
It was 2002. We got married in Las Vegas. Awesome wedding.
Real
Very
wedding,
fun.
which I feel like I always have to say. Like, people go, "Oh, you got married in Vegas." No, it was a real wedding. We had
It
100.
wasn't like a
We
spur
had
of the moment.
We had
wedding.
a proper
planned it.
wedding with 100 people. It was a ball. Although we didn't have a reception. The reception, I remember us saying, we're like, "Okay, dinner's over. Go out to Vegas."
Right. We had dinner. Yes, we had a dinner at Rum Jungle, and then we didn't have like dancing or anything after that. It was just kind of like a party. And the good thing about getting married in Vegas was that people got to do whatever the hell they wanted. So it was like some people went to gamble. All of our friends hung out at this one bar and hung out together.
Do you remember when when I won the roulette?
Yes,
Yeah.
I will never forget that.
So I was walking to the bathroom, and I think I put $50 on the roulette table, and on a number, and I won, and it was $1,000 payout. And that seemed like an incredible amount of money at the time.
Oh my God, it was. It still does.
And I came back and I showed you that, and you immediately said, "Where's my half?"
Yeah, we're married now, bitch. Where's my half? And then you said, remember that Louis Vuitton bag I got you for our wedding gift?
There's your half.
And I was like, all right.
I got to pay for that when we get back.
Fine. Okay. So it was funny because we were like we were together probably the longest of all of our friends from high school, or not necessarily high school, but college.
You're college girls.
And then people started to kind of have babies, like in Chicago, right away, and we didn't. It wasn't that we didn't want to, like we just really hadn't. I don't think we even
graduated to that thought.
Having kids, like it was just assumed that we
27, 8.
Yeah, it was 27 when we got married, and then a year into our marriage, I got transferred. So I was working at Playboy. The headquarters were moving from Chicago to New York, and they asked me if we would move. And I was like, yeah, I love my job. It was so fun. So we moved to New York in 2003. And I remember Amy Rassin, who's probably listening, love you, Hookie. She had twins, like right before we moved. So all of our best friends were starting to have kids. But that plays into our story because we were moving to a new city. We didn't know anybody. I mean, we knew a couple of people.
Not hardly.
But we were like, we can't move to New York and then have kids. Like, had we stayed in Chicago, I think our story would be totally different. And I don't think we'd even be having this conversation because we probably would have had kids younger.
That's right.
Wouldn't have had any problems. But point being that we waited. We moved to New York in 2003, and then we didn't start to try until 2009.
Yeah, well,
because we were like,
reestablishing
we don't
a life.
fucking know anybody.
Nope.
I didn't even know how to ride the subway. We were, establishing our careers, like things were going well.
I didn't have a job when we moved there. I didn't have a friend. I didn't have a job,
Right.
So the idea that we were going to be home taking care of kids was way off the table. So that was kind of terrifying, just the notion of moving to New York and leaving Chicago behind, because that was where everything that we had ever done in our life stemmed from our upbringing in Chicago, our friend groups, our friend circle. We both went to school in Illinois. Everybody moved to Chicago.
Yeah.
That was sort of comfortable home base.
Right. But it's funny because, and I've talked about this many times on various episodes of this podcast, I didn't think about my fertility, and I didn't think, okay, so now we're, in our early 30s, and it wasn't like clock's ticking. Like, nobody had ever really said anything like that to me, and I'm not being like, woe is me, like someone should have warned us, but even like the gynecologist, nobody was like,
I don't know that we even heeded that warning.
Yeah, but nobody was like, hey, at 35, like, shit's gonna go haywire, like, you better get on it. So we were just like having fun in New York, establishing our lives,
None of our friends had kids.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, is none of our friends in New York had children, so it just kind of wasn't at the forefront. Okay, so now, cut to 2009, and now I was 34, going on 35, and I was like, I think we should have kids. And you were like, yeah, let's do it. And not that it was super duper easy, but we started to try, and I would say it was a couple months. I went off the pill.
Ev asked us this the other day, and it must have been so easy that we barely remember how it all transpired, because I guess we were still in the zone.
Yeah.
Right? But, obviously we have a...
Right. She did ask me, Mom, do you remember the moment you found out you were pregnant with me? And I was like, I don't remember the exact moment. Like, I remember being thrilled, but I don't remember, because it wasn't an issue. Like, it was just like, we're trying to have a baby, and 3 months later
we were having a baby.
I was pregnant, and thankfully, that pregnancy went well. I did have placenta previa,
right,
and she was breech, which was a little bit of an issue, but the one story from that I always tell was that I didn't really know anything about placenta previa, and I remember going to my OB and saying,
yeah,
all right, so and they were like, you're going to have a C-section. And I said, why? And they're like, because your placenta's blocking your cervix, and there's nowhere for the baby to come out. So if you go into labor, the baby will literally get stuck. And I remember looking at my doctor and saying, so what would happen in like olden times before, pre-Caesar, like before they had C-sections? And she was like, oh, both mother and baby would die. And I was like, oh, shit. Yeah. I've said that many times before, but it was just one of those moments where, again, I didn't know much about reproduction or my own body. I think we were just like,
we hadn't been tested.
And so, yeah, I did. I had a C-section with Ever. She was born September 24th, 2009. And it was awesome. Tell me your side of that. It
went as you thought it was supposed to go, but it was really like any other first parents. We experienced all of the life disruption that happens, right? The sleepless nights, the social calendar canceled, all the things that come with that. And I think that it seems immature at this time, given that we were 35 years old. Mm-hmm. But there was nothing within our social circle or even the context of our environment that was like, oh, you guys should have done this a long time ago. Mm-hmm. It was like, we were the first of our friends to really have kids.
Yeah, we ended up kind of, coming into this friend group in New York where a lot of people were younger, so we were like the anomaly, that we were like the first ones to kind of have a baby, and I didn't feel old. Nope. It didn't feel weird.
Nope.
At all. Like, I was like, all right.
No. There was no point in that process where I was like, oh, well, we were late to the party.
No, because I remember also, and this plays into the bigger picture as well, like, I was doing a lot of celebrity journalism at the time and writing a lot of magazine cover stories. and hearing like Halle Berry had a baby at 46, Janet Jackson, like, all right, maybe that was a little weird, but just people like had babies later and it wasn't a thing.
Yeah, it wasn't. It didn't cross my mind at all.
And also, it should be noted that like Instagram wasn't a thing yet.
No,
Instagram didn't come until a couple years later.
I mean, it may have been a thing, but
there wasn't an
nobody knows.
Instagram community. There wasn't, we weren't thinking about fertility at all. We had our baby. We were happy. I loved being a mom. Like, I was surprised by how much I loved being a mom and by like how happy it made me. I mean, I always knew I wanted to have kids, but I didn't realize how much it would like goosh. Opening a Coors. I didn't realize how much I like loved it, and it was just my favorite thing ever. I was so pleasantly surprised, which was awesome, and it's a testament to Ever because she was amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, not that she was easy, but she was just the coolest and the best, and everybody thinks.
Well,
that
we didn't
about their
really
kids.
have we really didn't have a basis of comparison, and aside from all of the normal life disruptions that happen when you have a newborn or even a young child, like it was, all the waking moments were beautiful, right? And it felt like we nailed it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, and I'd love to hear actually. I always assumed we would have another one. I mean, we never really talked about it. It was just kind of like, I love this. Let's do it again.
Well, so I always assumed we would have another one too, because I knew that was something that was in your DNA, right? You came from a big extended family. One of the things that I refer back to is when we were first dating and meeting. I mean, I guess I should point out, I'm an only child of two only children.
Correct.
I have no aunts, no uncles, no cousins, no brothers, no sisters. And it's also worth noting that I had a really good life growing up, right? Like it never felt deficient.
Yeah.
It never
parents
felt like
wonderful.
people ask me. I've used the analogy before that people are like, well, don't you wish you had brothers and sisters? And I said, well, I guess that's like asking somebody who was blind from birth, don't they wish they can see? I never saw what that would mean or be like, and my life was really fulfilling.
Yeah, you had a great life. Your parents are amazing.
So I think that this comes into play later, when we talk about second kid and the effort that we had to put forth. But it was, it was great. We had our one child.
Yep.
And I knew that we would try to have others because that was always in your agenda.
Right.
But I was not in a race to get there.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is we weren't really in a race, even though, so I had Ever when I was 35. We didn't start to try like in earnest for like at least 2 to 2.5 years. And then it was like, okay, let's try to have the other one. And I thought that it was going to be as easy as it was with her.
Right.
I genuinely did. I was just like, okay, go off the pill, a couple months. And we actually did get pregnant pretty easily. I think it was, I remember when I had my first miscarriage, we had probably been trying for 3 or 4 months, and I did get pregnant. And it was like, great, cool. We didn't think anything of it. But then we were on a family trip in North Carolina, went to visit my siblings. And I should say, too, I'm one of 5. So I have my sister Kim, and then I have Sue, Vicky, and Jeff, who are my step-siblings. And I always just loved having tons of family around, like you said. Like, my mom is one of 5. My dad, Bob, was one of 7. So I have tons of cousins, tons of aunts and uncles. And I love, like, a house that's, like, clamoring with people, like holidays and people running around and chaos and, like, that fun
We
chaos.
talk about one of the things, it was early on, but like when I met Scott and you were like, this is my nephew. I was
Scott
like,
Fields, what's up?
And I was like,
Yeah.
He was like, he's pretty much our age.
Yeah,
How does that work?
because I have siblings who are a little bit older, I was an aunt when I was 6 years old. My nephew Scott is 6 years younger than me, which I always thought was so cool, and we were so close.
And I remember
so that was
standing in
awesome.
your parents' kitchen, and you kind of walking me through the room
Yeah.
of like who was related to you and how, and coming from the only children thing. I said, I don't get it. It doesn't matter.
You were like, is that person related to you? And I was like, yeah, that's my cousin. You're like, who's that? And I'm like, that's my, stepsister. Who's that? That's my so-and-so. And you're like, everybody here is related to you in some way. I was like, yeah, that's family. That's how it goes.
Yeah, that's true.
And not ever judging, like nothing wrong with only children at all. Like we said, you had an amazing life. I couldn't love your parents more.
I was all
never
for
an
it.
issue. But okay, so I did get pregnant, and then while we were on this trip in North Carolina, I remember it was pretty early on, like I was maybe 7 or 8 weeks along, and I started bleeding. And I was like, oh, God, I don't know what's happening, and got back home and still bleeding, called the, gynecologist, and they were like, I think you're probably having a miscarriage. And again, it wasn't that traumatic. Because it was like, I did have a lot of friends who had miscarriages. And I was like, okay, well, obviously it was super sad, but we're like, we'll try again. And we did. And everyone knows my version of the story, but I'm curious, what was your take on that miscarriage?
So much of that whole period, which, I think ends up becoming a very long period. These rivers run together, and I don't necessarily know that I really remember the difference between 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, but I didn't really think much about it because that happens. That's a thing. Mm-hmm. I think I was aware of the fact that my mother had a miscarriage at some point, and I just took comfort in that. I think a little bit that was like, this is a normal thing that happens to people, and you get back to what you were intending to do, and it's going to work out.
Right. So we kind of just like moved along, and Ever was getting older, obviously, by the day, and she was awesome, and we were living our lives. And then, I had the second miscarriage, and they were all pretty early on. And then, a couple months went by, I got pregnant again, had another one. And I remember at one point I'd called the doctor, and they were so like flippant about it. Like I was like, I'm bleeding, I don't know what's going on. And they were like, you're probably just having a miscarriage. Like just kind of blew it. Like it was like the 100th call she'd had that day.
How far into this are we at that point? Like how many years? Into our second effort.
Yeah. So another thing I should note is that I never knew that this was called secondary infertility.
No, I never heard that.
I never heard that term.
You started this show.
Actually, after we had Sonny, which is crazy.
Yeah, no, that's for sure.
So even while we were going through it, I didn't realize that this was called secondary infertility. And
so where are we at? We're at miscarriage 2, 3.
Yeah.
Like, and what's our timeline?
Right.
Like, this is where it gets blurry. Are we 2 years in?
Yeah. The whole thing between Ever and Sonny was obviously 6.5 years, but we didn't start to try until she was about 2.5. So it was about almost 4 years.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Of trying. But with each subsequent miscarriage, I remember feeling more and more depressed and more just sad and feeling very alone. Like I've obviously had wonderful friends and family that I could talk to about this, but again, no Instagram community. I didn't have an account dedicated to this.
I wasn't helping.
Why do you say that?
I wasn't, well, because I didn't understand the pain that was starting to set in with the defeats, right? Yeah. Like it was, and also, I guess if we're gonna say it, I didn't necessarily feel like we absolutely needed a second child, right? Like I grew up an only child, and Ever, we've already pointed out, was beautiful and and vibrant and inspiring, and I loved everything she did, and in my mind it was like, well, if that's the only child we have, then I'm cool with that.
Right.
But I knew the whole time I didn't really have a platform to speak upon, because I don't have family to reflect upon in that way. Allie did. So I used her as sort of the bellwether to say, we keep going.
Yeah. But did you feel like you just kept going because I wanted to so badly?
We got to that point eventually,
yeah.
Right? I mean, it was tearing us up, right? I mean, it became the sole focus.
Yeah. I think it was probably like after maybe the third miscarriage where I was like, all right, shit.
Yeah.
Something's wrong. We need to call in, the troops or some outside help. And I think that the first conversation we had about that, you were kind of like, but do we though? I remember not feeling like we were on the same page. I wanted it so badly.
Yeah.
And it was almost like the more I couldn't have it, the more I wanted it. And I could tell that you weren't on the same page emotionally, and I don't blame you for that.
No.
But that was when the cracks, I think, started to
you can't tell somebody
happen.
how to have their emotional journey.
Right.
And I think it goes back to a little bit of ignorance that I don't have something to compare it to, but what I do definitively know is that this journey is really messing us up.
Yeah.
Right? It is messing up the relationship that we have. Mm-hmm. Right? We're striving so hard to have another child that we're literally losing ourselves in the battle.
Right.
And everything that we took so much pride in about our own relationship had almost completely left the building, because it was about, I'm in week 3. Oh, I'm ovulating.
Right, because once I started tracking, then it was sex became timed, and it was more of a chore, and
I mean, listen, if we're talking right now, I remember there was a moment where we got in White Castle on a Sunday, and you peed on a stick later on, and you said, "Oh, I'm ovulating. We need to do it." And I was like, "Come on."
You're like, I just had
White Castle. And you said to me, you better get upstairs and take a shower or flap it around or whatever the hell you need to do. But when you come down here, we're making a baby.
Hot.
I don't know that
Sexy.
worked. I don't think that worked.
No,
but,
I don't think so either.
That was basically that was my opinion of where we had gone was sex wasn't about fun. It was about procreation, and it was also totally riddled in struggle. Yeah,
and I remember another time, not to blow up your spot, but where we were mid doing it, and all right, parents, Rose, Linda, if you're listening, you can just put on your earmuffs right now. But we were doing it, and then you lost your erection, and I was like, oh, for fuck's, are you kidding me? Come on. And I got so mad at you because it was that window, that time is so small.
Right.
And I remember you were sweating and I was crying, and it was the worst. And I was like, oh my God.
Well, it wasn't it wasn't.
How did it come to this?
It was anything that previously was sexual that was about enjoying each other had left the building. Right, and not only left the building, it had left the apartment, it had left the neighborhood, it had left the town.
Right.
Right. It was we have sex when it's time to make a baby.
Yep.
And
it's not working.
I don't know when that's coming,
right.
but you're gonna pop out of the bathroom on a Tuesday at 6 and go, now.
I'm like, put your mozzarella sticks down and fucking stick it in.
And then you would do that thing where you would put your legs on the, like, you'd be like, okay, go.
Yeah, legs up the wall.
And
you guys,
you turn around on the headboard, and you'd like stick your legs up, and then you'd grab a book.
Put some pillows on
you grab a book, and you'd be like, bye.
Yeah, that's, again, hot. So I know a lot of people can relate to that legs up the wall moment. But, all right, so it's not happening. It's not happening.
Nope.
I'm getting depressed and sad. I think you're fed up with me. Our sex life is terrible.
Well, it's, listen, sex life is an important part of any relationship.
Yeah.
But it went beyond that. Like, it became our life, right? Like, it was all about, like, you were always on the clock.
Right. But I remember feeling like I was on this island because we didn't have the same goal. Like, you were like, if it happens, cool. But I don't, like, I've said this before too, like, I had this guttural feeling, and I was like, I will not be happy until
you did. No, you most no, you did. Yeah, you weren't
and you
weren't
didn't
backing
feel that
up.
way,
No, I didn't.
and that was really hard.
No, I was really sad about the fact that I feel like we had lost us in the process.
And we had. And I'm not saying what I did was correct. Like, in retrospect, I feel badly that I forewent our relationship because I was so focused on this. And I told you this while we were going through it, like, I wish that I didn't want it so badly.
Oh, yeah, you said that a lot.
I couldn't help it. And I was just trying to be true to myself. And I think that's part of the struggle with infertility in general is, like, sometimes you just wish that it wasn't a thing. Like, I was like, if I didn't want this so badly, we'd be great. We've got our girl, we've got each other, we're fine. But it was like there was this gnawing thing inside of me that I couldn't deny. And that was really hard to grapple with because I knew that I was fucking things up. And I felt guilty. And then I would, like, spiral into this thing where, like, I felt bad that I was putting you through this and then I was putting us through it. But I couldn't not do it. And I think that was one of the hardest things for me. It was, like, trying to be true to myself, but also trying to honor what we had built since Women's Workout World in 1991. And I could see you slipping away, but I couldn't stop it. Like, that was really, really tricky. I think that's when I started seeing a therapist, and that helped
I
a lot.
also felt like, you're right. Like, I mean, let's be honest. Like, I feel like at that point we had lost us.
Yeah.
Right. We had, like.
And also, I felt like I was going crazy.
Like, we had gone so far down this path that, I think you've talked about in some of your shows that like, we were on the verge of not making it. Now, I never really, maybe I'm just ignorant. I never really thought we weren't going to make it, but I knew we were really broken, and I knew that if we didn't keep trying towards this goal, there was no other objective in our relationship that would satisfy you.
Right. Yeah. So I do remember there was, like, a seminal moment for me where we were driving out to see Gail and Eric. Hi, Gail, if you're listening, in the Hamptons, and we were on the 405. Is that what it's called?
495 Montauk Highway. You're not great with directions.
No. And I remember I just felt so sad. And I remember looking at you and trying to explain where I was coming from, and you just didn't feel the same way. And I remember being like, are we going to make it? And you, like, looked at me and you were like, I don't know. And I was like, shit. And I remember saying, like, we are at an impasse. Like, I want to keep going, and I want to maybe call in, like, medical intervention. And you did not want to do that. So talk to me about that. Why were you so adamant about not wanting to go to, like, an RE or talk to somebody else?
Well, I think the exhaustion, played a role. But also, I never felt like we never planned for that, right? Like, that's the whole problem in all of this. Like, you don't plan for having to call in medical intervention, so it doesn't really schedule itself really well into your life. And also, I the only thing I knew was it was hard and it was expensive. Mm-hmm. And it's not as if we were at a point in our life where, you know, we're not now, but, you know, swimming in money where like that part, the financial aspect was going to be easy.
Right.
And we had already emotionally sort of been to the brink. So I was ready to call it, right? Like I was, and again, it comes back to some of this only child. Why are we, like, I grew up fine. Why do we have to have this?
Right.
Right? Like, why does your version of how our family has to be take precedence over how I grew up?
Yeah. I get that.
And then now it's at the point where it has damaged our relationship, the thing I cherish the most, to the point of being at this impasse.
Yeah. But I remember, like, there was a lot of anger that came into it at this point for me, because I remember when we did talk about money, and I remember thinking, how can you fucking put a price tag on this? Like, how can a child be more or less important than money? Like, how can you even quantify it? Like, to me, it was like, I'll pay, I mean, whatever, we'll take out a loan, or who cares? Like, we'll make it work. And you were just like, no. And I remember you were very adamant about, you were like, no, we're not going to see anybody. We're not doing anything else. And I was pissed.
You know, I spend a lot of my life, I spend a lot of my, I still do, thinking about what's in the cards for me. Like, you know, you shoot your shot, and if it doesn't work, then you figure something else out. And I felt like we had exhausted our natural options. And for me, as we've already pointed out, I didn't necessarily need the second kid. Yeah. Right. And you did. So there was the impasse.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you needed it and I didn't. And now we're starting to trying to throw money we don't have at a problem that I don't think we need to solve.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to, I did consult Dr. Klein, who ended up being our doctor. I got a recommendation from somebody, and I felt like I was like doing it on my own. I remember I went to the appointment by myself. I wasn't hiding it from you, but I think you were just like, whatever the fuck at that point, because now we'd had, 4 miscarriages. I was like in the depths of depression. I'd started seeing a therapist. It was helping a little bit, but I still had this laser focus that I wanted this second baby. And I went in to see Joshua Klein, and he was wonderful. And he did, an initial exam, and he was like, well, guess what? I think I was 40, like newly 40 at the time. And he's like, the problem is, your body's not having a problem getting pregnant. You're having a problem staying pregnant. And I think it's a, chromosomal issue. You've got a lot of eggs. I think he called me an egg superstar was what he said, because I have it on an email. He said, you're a perfect candidate for IVF. He's like, all we have to do is find the good eggs, and then you're going to be fine. We'd never had you tested. Also, sorry. Was this before we did the IUIs or after?
No.
I think we actually did IUIs before we went to Dr. Klein. Yes. Because a friend of mine, Helen, had done an IUI, and it worked for her. So we actually did. We did 2 IUIs, and neither of them worked. So then I went to Dr. Klein. Say it.
The IUI. Listen, it's a step in the process, and it does work for certain people apparently.
Yeah,
but all I thought about was, I remember leaving work telling people I have to go to a doctor's appointment so I could masturbate in some office into a cup, and then go back to the office as if it was, I just came from a dentist appointment. Mm-hmm. It was the weirdest thing. Like it part of me just made me chuckle. Yeah. But also I was like, this can't be a thing.
Right. But also those weren't cheap, and nothing was covered by insurance. Everything for us was out of pocket. So we did the 2, didn't work, and then that's when I saw Dr. Klein. So he said, you're an egg superstar, perfect candidate. And I remember leaving that appointment and feeling super hopeful. And I came home and I was like, Vinny, this is awesome. He said we're perfect candidates. He thinks IVF is going to be great.
We went back together.
And then...
We went back together.
We did, yeah. And then I said, he wants to see you as well. And I think he did want to test your sperm and make sure. Again, it's a little fuzzy because it was so long ago and you like block these details out. I think it's part self-preservation or something.
You went first.
Right.
We went together.
Yeah. And then you went.
And
okay. So we went back together and I think the whole time you were like, arms crossed, body language, you're not receptive
probably
to this. True. And again, I'm like kind of seething. So I'm like, you motherfucker. Like, can you have a bit of an open mind about this? And you weren't really feeling it. And again, I get it, but I just was mad because it was like,
and I was mad. I was mad that we were in that situation.
Yeah. So we went together. I think he said, let's do a round and see what happens. And then we got like the paperwork and we looked at the financials and it was like, holy shit, this is like.
No, it was.
You tell your version.
All right. So here's what I remember. It was everything. You went in. You got the initial sort of consultation, and you came back, and you were over the moon. You were like, Hey, he says we can do it. And then we went back together, and that's what we just talked about. I was probably a little bit stoic, and
stoic.
I was not. I didn't want to be there, and
asshole.
There was a lot of discussions about what's the process? How long does it take? What's each stage cost? And I didn't feel like we got a really clear story on the financial side of things. I don't know that they were being deceptive or they were just saying best case scenarios, but whatever it was, I didn't really feel comfortable that I understood how's this going to all play out, timeline, financials, and realistically, does this end with us having a kid? I didn't get a clear picture for that. And Allie was just pissed at me for even being there.
Because he had given me an answer, and it was finally like some answers. Like he was like, this could work. This might be your thing. And
I just felt like any word that was going to come out of my mouth that wasn't like, oh my God, I'm so thrilled that we can make this work, was counterproductive to Allie's plan.
Yeah. So again, like for anyone listening, the relationship, I think this was one of our lowest points.
Yeah, we were at the bottom. We were at the bottom of the bucket at this point.
And I was mad. I was so mad. Like I just had so much anger. And
I went back.
All right, so yeah, tell everybody.
Yeah. So I said I can't have you sitting there next to me, reading into every question I ask and being mad when I say how much does this cost? How much does this cost? And I remember getting the answers because I asked the questions that I wanted to ask, and I found out it was going to be way more expensive than what was initially mapped out for us.
Why was that?
Because there was the genetic testing, right? That was like an add-on. It was like, you want the leather seats?
$5,000.
Right? Do you want the 20-inch rims? Right? Like there was.
Remember you said it was like going to a used car.
Right? Like
dealer.
there was all these things that were like, oh yeah. I was like, well, if we're going to do this, we have to do all these things.
Right.
Like we don't do this and do like spend most of the money and do half the things. Like we need to spend all the money and do all the things.
Because I should backtrack a little bit and say we had agreed. Well, we hadn't agreed at this point, but we were like, we're just going to do one round, and we'll do all the things for one round.
Right. So,
but we still were not at the point where you had agreed.
I hadn't. No, I certainly.
But that was kind of the understanding. Was like you were like, we'll do it once. If we do it. So if we're going to do it, we're going to do all the things.
Right. So I remember leaving. I remember leaving there, and I went to Rocco's Tacos afterwards, and
we're telling everyone about our great nutrition.
I got some tacos, and I ordered a beer, and I remember the phone rang, and I was like, oh, shit. it's Allie. And she said...
Isn't that great when you're the wife and your husband's like, oh, shit, she's calling.
And her enthusiasm on that call, she said, how did it go? Was it great?
I remember being like, isn't he great? Isn't he amazing?
He's the best.
He's a genius. He went to Harvard.
Right. Like, so great, right? And I said, we're not doing this.
Oh, dagger to the heart.
She said, well, what do you mean we're not doing this? I said, this whole thing that they told us on the consultation that you brought me into, like, if we're going to do this the right way, it's not what they said. It's double that. Because why wouldn't we do the genetic testing? Why wouldn't we do the egg freezing? Why wouldn't we do the we got sold the Kia and we wanted to buy the Lexus from the jump. And I felt like it wasn't really about that we wouldn't have committed to that price because it was a leap anyway. It was that I felt like we weren't given the full scope of things. Mm-hmm. And that just made me mad. I felt like I was being led down a gravelly road.
Right. Then everyone's mad.
Right.
Now we're both mad for different reasons.
Everybody's mad.
Right. So I remember having many, many teary conversations with you and almost like begging you and being like, can we please just do one? And on the other part of it, like I said, I was going to therapy and my therapist was great. And she was kind of getting me to the headspace where like, guess what? If you're a family of 3, you're going to be okay. And she kind of helped me shift my perspective and realize that like it was going to be okay. And it was okay. And she helped me like pump the brakes a little bit in terms of the blinders that were on me. But I still wanted to do the 1 round. So I remember it took a long time. It took a couple of months after that initial consultation for us to agree to finally do it. But then one day you were like, let's do 1 round. And I should note that we had our parents, we asked them to help us.
Yeah, they both
helped us financially because we didn't have the change, like the money at that point. Nope. The change.
The change.
the nickels.
We had change.
We had wooden nickels.
We had change. We didn't have actual green bills.
So they both helped us, and thank you so much to all of them for that, because they knew how important it was to us, or to me at least. And we finally did agree to do 1 round. And, again, Vince with his arms crossed across his chest and me feeling super hopeful. And
well, it was clear at that point Allie, you were on the warpath for this thing, and it was like you meant it was either this or nothing.
Well, I felt like if we didn't try everything, especially since a doctor was telling me that it could work, I would never forgive you. Like, that's kind of how
I knew
felt.
We weren't getting out of this.
I was like, I couldn't be married to you for the rest of my life and know that you wouldn't try this for us. And I couldn't.
We weren't going to make it.
We weren't going to
make it without that effort.
No, that's true. So we did finally agree to do the 1 round. And then we did. And
I was on a business trip. This is the part that gets a little muddy. Like, remember I was on a business trip, like, and I was walking down Boylston Street in Boston, and you called me, and there was good news, right? There was a perfect egg, but then there was bad news. It was like, that's it. That's all we got. No, that's not it. Not it.
Not what happened.
Not what happened. All right. Okay, go ahead. Tell me.
We went through like the drug protocol, and I went in for my retrieval, and I remember I got 29 eggs.
Yeah. I think we're past this.
Okay. A 1 good embryo was what
Yeah. 1 good embryo.
Right. Yes. Okay, so I did the retrieval, 29 eggs, 13 fertilized, 5 or 6 made to blast. We ended up with 5 embryos. We had 5 embryos genetically tested.
Yeah.
1 embryo came back perfect.
That's the call.
Okay, so that's what you're talking about.
That's the call. Yeah,
Okay.
Maybe I skipped a few chapters, but That was the call, and it was like, hey, Dr. Klein says we got one
healthy embryo
that's really great, and then you got nothing behind that.
Right.
And that was fine because that was like sort of what we set out to accomplish.
And it
anyway.
did actually, to come around to your side of it a little bit, I did feel like, okay, we have one. We're going to finally see some closure. We're going to try this. If it doesn't work, that's it. We're done. And that's okay. And therapy, again, was helping me realize that. So we did that. We did the transfer. I remember we had to do a frozen transfer because he felt like it would be better for my body to come off all the drugs. We had to wait another month, but at that point it was like, we've been waiting for 4 years, so we can wait another month. We did the transfer. I remember it was August 1st. Or no. It was not. I'm so emphatic. August 1st. No, it was April 1st. And we had a trip to Florida planned to see your parents, and it timed out perfectly because my 2-week wait, we were in Florida for most of that time. It was actually ended up being about a 10-day wait. But we did the transfer. Do you remember the transfer at all? Were you there?
I was at something. I mean, I was at all the things, but like there was a point where I remember being in a waiting room with a bunch of other guys, and then you were in your own. God, I don't know.
I know it's.
It was
sketchy,
so
right?
much. There were so many waiting rooms. There were so many.
Right.
So many doctor's visits. There was so much like, is this a thing or is this just some voodoo? You know, but this
right.
there was a part that I do remember. I do remember the transfer. Yeah,
You were in the room with me.
That was very real.
Okay, so you were there for the transfer, and then we went to Florida, the 2-week wait. But do you remember, like...
Can I ask a question? Is it a fresh transfer?
Yeah, but we did frozen.
Right, but like my sperm.
No, it was frozen.
My sperm was frozen?
Yes.
Are you sure about that?
Yes. Oh. We made an embryo, and that was frozen.
Maybe I just went into the bathroom to relieve some stress.
Oh my God.
Oh, we don't have to do that.
Did you give a sample the day of the transfer?
We don't have to do that now? Well, as it turns out, I'm ready if somebody needs an extra.
So Vince had a fresh transfer with somebody else, clearly, that day.
I don't know. I don't know if that's real.
Right, but... All right, so we went to Florida, and then I remember we got back, and I had to go into the lab, take a blood test, and the nurse was like, we'll call you in, 6 hours, go home and take a nap. And I remember thinking, go fuck yourself. Like, I'm going to be able to go home and sleep right now? But I remember vividly, I went home, Ever was like laying in the bed with us, and then we got the call, and then it was the nurse, and she said, congratulations, you're pregnant. And I immediately started bawling, dropped the phone.
She said, call us when you deliver.
She said, call us when you deliver. Whew. I just got the chills. And it had worked. Do you remember that call?
I do remember that call. And I do remember feeling like,
You're like, which one? The fresh transfer or the frozen?
I feel like, who? No, I do feel like I remember, listen, we had been so beat up. We were so beat up. So I remember feeling like, oh my God, this sounds like we got it. Mm-hmm. But at the same time being like, well, it's been too rough of a road. Like there's got to be something that happens after this that derails the train.
Right. I think that's so common in infertility is like, when's the other shoe going to drop?
Yeah, and I think that lucky for us, there was no derailment. That was the road to recovery. And having two kids and it doesn't make life easy, but compared to the fractured relationship that was starting to be mended because we had success. And I don't know what would have happened if we didn't have success. I mean, that's the part that really irks me about really solid relationships that go through this whole thing and don't end up on the successful side, because there's no guarantee that you're going to be successful. In fact, most
My God, we
people
got so
aren't.
lucky. We got so lucky.
And do
that's a good
we make
question.
it? Do we make it after that?
I don't know.
What are we like after that?
I don't know.
If we don't do this,
Right.
I don't know. We would have been different.
Yeah. I think I always would have been low-key angry and low-key sad. Always. I think we probably would have stayed together, but I don't think it would have been the same.
Yeah. And it took me a long time to realize how close we were to, the end
Yeah.
before we, sort of had an opportunity to, resume the love that we had for each other.
Yeah.
And I think we're back there.
Well, we're perfect now. I mean, my God, no
we're
arguments
amazing.
ever.
No, we only fight about the kids now.
Pocket kids. All right, let's answer let's pause and go pee, and
Yes.
then we're going to answer a couple questions. All right, so we are going to answer some questions. I put up some stuff on Instagram, and a lot of our friends chimed in, and this is from our love, Marilyn. Vinny, what did you learn about yourself and also about me while we were going through all this?
What did I learn? So first off, I learned how important family was to Allie. And I learned how much having her mom, her dad, our kids, everybody around really was the life that she wanted to have moving forward. I felt like I never really understood. Friends were our world, right? So this was about understanding how family was going to play a role in the rest of our life, and I felt like I didn't necessarily grasp that with her. Maybe because I never asked her, maybe because I didn't get it, but it was really clear. Mm-hmm. What was the second part of the question?
That was it. All right, this is from my love Monica. She said, ask Vince, are we as crazy on the outside as we feel on the inside? You can be honest.
Yeah, I think so. I think, well, it was progressive, right? Like, not at first, not from the jump, but as desperation sets in, it gets pretty amplified, and yeah, it seemed pretty crazy to me. It maybe there's got to be other couples who share a common vision, right? Where it was like, we both want this so bad and we're going to do everything together to make this happen. But from my vantage point, yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was singular in focus. Like, it was like nothing else mattered. And, maybe the answer was yes.
Yeah. All right. Ashley's asking, how can we, as the women, better support our husbands or partners through this journey? Like, what was I lacking in terms of support for you?
Gosh, I feel like, well, we said it in the previous context. What was really hard for me was less about our struggle to have a child and more about the loss of us. That was the part that really weighed heavy on me. So I guess if you're going to try and support your husband, you don't necessarily have to support your husband. You have to support your relationship. Mm-hmm. You have to remember why you guys got in a position in the first place to even want to have a baby and want to find your way to making a family that takes you through the rest of your life, because that gets lost. Boy, it gets lost really quick. And try and remember why you guys got together and why you're trying to do this to begin with. Coming from somebody who I know we lost that. We did.
All right, last question. This is from Kim, my sister.
Oh, God. Here we go.
She's...
I know this is going to be...
She goes, at what point did you get tired of all that wang-wanging? Which is just a little backstory. This is what your Aunt Anna used to say. Yeah, when we were in high school and we would be at like a family dinner.
Listen, I didn't have any aunts or uncles or cousins or brother, but I did have a great aunt.
She was awesome. And we'd be at like Thanksgiving dinner, and she was like probably in her late 80s. And we were like in our teens, and she would be like, "Where did you guys go? Did you go upstairs and wang?" And we were like, "Oh yeah."
There was a handful of times she was wrong, but mostly she was right. Be like, "Can we go sneak off to the basement and at least try and make something out of this Thanksgiving?" When did we get tired of all that wang-wanging? Well, you get tired of all the wang-wanging.
You get tired when your wife is looking at you and being like, "Stick it in."
No. You get it gets there eventually, but like there's definitely like calculated sex is kind of disappointing, right? Like where it's like, well, we have to do it at this time on this day for this reason to make a baby, right? So I guess the only thing I would say is that's part of the process, right? Like you have to do that, right? Like that's what you literally have to do to make a baby. But the times in between where you don't have to have sex for having a baby, try and go back to the times when you were having sex or just being with each other to not have a baby, because that's ultimately what everybody enjoys. And I think that once you get past the journey, successfully or unsuccessfully, you have to get back to that. So try and I don't know, try and find some time in between the cycles to really enjoy just the joy of doing that. Wang-wanging.
All right, guys, thank you so much for listening to Vince and my love story, our messy marriage story and infertility story. I love him so much, obviously, and I'm so happy that we've been through a lot of ups and downs over the years, and I know that, there's no stopping us now if we can get through that shit, right? Anyway, thanks again to Vince for agreeing to do that. Thank you all for listening. And also, fertility rally memberships are open the first week of every month, which is right now. So check us out. DM us or shoot me an email at thefertilityrally@gmail.com, and we will hook you guys up. It is such a great community of incredible people from all over the place going through all sorts of different things. We have 8 support groups a month, a private Facebook group, and just lots of awesome shit to help you navigate this journey. So love you all. Thank you for following along with me on these 100 episodes. Let's do 100 more. All right, guys. Talk to you next time.